Welcome to Peggy's Cove, Nova Scotia, famous for its iconic lighthouse, rugged coastline and charming fishing village vibes. Join us as we explore one of Canada's most photographed spots.
Good morning, today we're arriving in Halifax and it's 5 degrees but feels like 2 degrees, but it's a lovely day out, really sunny, very crisp. Anyway, we're doing a tour, an excursion, going along the coastal route, so we'll see what that entails. Just in down for breakfast, had a small cooked breakfast, and we're due to meet up in one of the dining rooms at 9 o'clock in order to start our excursion. Anyway, I'll give you a quick look round to show you what Halifax looks like.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Halifax, and happy Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving, that is. My name is Brian, I'm the guide on this tour, and we have Billy at the wheel. Can everyone hear me okay upstairs?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. That's what I like to hear. So, just before we get rolling, just a few points for your safety. We have emergency exits in the windows and in the roof, operated by the red handles. But no worries, we have absolutely no plans on rolling over. And I have a fire extinguisher up front with me. We don't plan on blowing up either. And we have a first aid kit here with me, but I'll be giving you some tips to keep yourselves safe at Peggy's Cove, which is about an hour and 10 minutes away. Maybe a little quicker than that. And coming up the cemeteries, on the right, this is Holy Cross Cemetery, an Irish Catholic cemetery, because this district was an Irish Catholic district back in the 1840s thereabouts, and they wanted their very own cemetery, their very own Catholic church. So there's their very own Catholic church on the right, known as Our Lady of Sorrows Chapel, but we know it better as the church built in a single day. You see, back in August of 1843, roughly 1,000 Irish immigrants gathered on that spot and successfully erected the church in a single day. George Wright, a philanthropist from Halifax, came up with Wright's International Business Directory in the days before the internet. But George Wright found himself in England in the spring of 1912, and he made a most unfortunate decision of ship to come back to the New World aboard. He bought himself a first-class ticket aboard the Titanic. Stadium on the left is known as the Wanderers Grounds, where our Halifax Wanderers professional soccer team play. Looks like they're going to qualify for the playoffs. It's a miracle. I'll tell you about Peggy's Cove a little further along as we get a little bit closer, give you an idea of what to expect and tell you, oh, it's Peggy, but that's coming up anyway. But here you're probably looking more like the Million for housing prices right here. Pretty nice big old houses here. You're going to have pretty good colours today, but I'd say we're probably now past the peak of the fall colours. The really bright ones there, the red maples, oh, they can be beautiful in the fall colours. The yellow birch is pretty good as well. We had a beast of a lobster season last year, low catches, low prices. Some fishermen didn't actually bother going back on the water when the water temperatures warmed up in late March, April, May. Observatory on the right there, by the way. But yeah, so I don't know how to put it. Troubling signs for the future of the lobster fishery with this northerly migration. Mind you, the northern end of the range for American lobster off the Canadian province of Newfoundland and Labrador, they're seeing more in more northerly places than ever before. And saying, hey, government, now here's that shift in the landscape I was telling you about. Look at these boulders. Where'd the trees go? So we're under the influence now of the ocean winds. This is known as a coastal barrens. Kind of buffeted by the wind, so the trees between the winds and the very thin soil here don't get a chance to grow very big. So some of these little red spruce trees over 100 years old, this is known as Wreck Cove. If you're wondering about the tides, we had low tide back around 20 past 8, high tide coming up 34 minutes past 1, so high tide today gets up to 5.3 feet here, so not huge. Last week we were up well over 6. Okay, where you see the waves breaking, those are under shoals close to the surface, rocks just below the surface there, so not too aggressive a sea state this morning. There, should be able to see the people of the cove now on the right. How's that for a sculpture? 32 people from Peggy's Cove. The image of Peggy herself. Here's the cove itself, the cove, place for the fishermen to tie up their boats, sheltered from the worst weather. Honestly, the worst weather. I've seen spray bouncing off the restaurant up the hill. Directly ahead of us, we have oldest house still standing in Peggy's Cove, circa 1805. Would you believe this weather-beaten house directly to our right now? That sold for $1.8 million 3 years ago. Woo! And you can see the lighthouse quite clearly. You can see the patio for the restaurant, although it's a little cold. They don't have the seats out anymore.
We parked up beside the other coaches and made our way to the gap between the restaurant and what was the public convenience. And the public convenience got really crowded really quickly.
Well, we made it here, which was a bit of a miracle really, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, because I didn't know I was coming on a tour until the last minute.
A complete and utter
Fiasco. That was not my fault.
technical term.
Had I been in charge of everything and the tickets, there wouldn't have been a problem. But I let Steve look at the tickets.
Ooh, that's a bit naughty, that's a bit rich.
Very rich, especially when you consider who did all the organisation of the bookings and agreeing them with our friends before we came out. Some people do have short memories. Located southwest of Halifax, Peggy's Cove is a small, historic fishing village on the eastern shore of St Margaret's Bay, Nova Scotia. Now, around this peninsula, there are numerous small fishing communities. This is one of the better known and one of the province's most iconic and photographed destinations. It's particularly renowned for the Peggy's Point Lighthouse, which is in front of us. This classic red and white lighthouse is still operating today, and it's one of those that's instantly recognisable, perched on top of the smooth, wave-worn granite rocks overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. Now, the landscape around here is strikingly rugged. It's been shaped by constant ocean erosion, and the bare granite outcrops, tidal pools and powerful waves create dramatic scenery, but can also be very dangerous, as our guide warned us. Apparently, rogue waves have claimed a few lives over the years, striking when least expected.
Absolutely brutal but beautiful coastline here.
The restaurant serves coffee, cold drinks, snacks, sandwiches and the ubiquitous, in Canada anyway, lobster roll. At the back of the restaurant is a colourful seating area and an accessible viewing platform which provides a safe walkway so that you can take in the scenery, avoiding walking on the rocks, which whilst you're permitted to do so is not really recommended. There is also a small gift shop which is attached to the restaurant and which sold mainly clothing and Joanne managed to pick up a very reasonably priced sweatshirt there. Whilst the lighthouse, surrounding rocks and walkways are absolutely fantastic, I really wanted to get down to the small fishing village because I love a small fishing village. We had passed it on our way in. This looked like how I imagined a Nova Scotia fishing village to look. Plenty of rustic buildings, colourful lobster pots and classic old-style fishing boats. There were also a number of small shops and restaurants. So all in all, a lot to explore.
So here we are at the absolutely gorgeous Peggy's Cove. Is everything that you would expect of a small fishing cove in Nova Scotia. Some really traditional houses and boats, very colourful, very nice. And there's also the lighthouse as well, and the views around the lighthouse are tremendous, but there's an awful lot of people here. But walking down to the older side of the port, and there's a lot less people, and things like the restrooms are much easier to use here with no queues, because it looks like everybody gets off the coach and immediately queues on the access to the lighthouse. But yeah, all very nice, absolutely superb.
The name Peggy's Cove is rich in local folklore, although its exact origin remains uncertain and shrouded in legend. Now, the most popular stories suggest it was named after a young woman named Margaret or Peggy. She was either a resident of the area in the 18th century or a woman who, according to some, drowned or was lost at sea, with the cove being named in her memory. Historical records do not definitely confirm any of these, creating a bit of a mystery which has become part of the village's charm. The prices in Peggy's Cove were very reasonable, consistent with what we've seen in other parts of Canada, and not seemingly inflated for the tourists, which was good. Around the village were also a number of small artist galleries, which were nice to browse. This is the Fisherman's Monument, which was created by a Finnish-Canadian artist, William Edward de Garth. He was a resident of Peggy's Cove, and he spent 7 years, beginning in 1977 at the age of 70, carving directly into a granite outcrop behind his home. With hand tools, he created 32 figures representing fishermen and their families, dedicating the work to the people of Peggy's Cove, as he had requested his ashes were interred at the base of the monument. Now it's time to get back up to the coach and take in a few of the gift shops on our way up. So apparently this building here sold for something around about 1.8 million Canadian dollars. Now I guess this is all about location, location, location. And boy does it have a location.
And we bought some very nice pewter for this from this shop. We bought a Christmas tree decoration, and Joanne bought some earrings. Okay.
So the plan is take you back to Halifax, a slightly different route along the shoreline of St. Margaret's Bay, very picturesque. So some of these houses, they've been around since the 1800s. In fact, the Little Red Schoolhouse, you can see that directly ahead, is cutting in behind the bed and breakfast there, but that's been there since 1839. That was a school up until 1958, now used for concerts and village meetings. Yeah, they typically do the toe-tapping Scottish music there several times.
Guide then told us of some of the major incidents that had affected this area. The first event he told us about took place on September the 11th, when approximately 47 flights with over 7,000 passengers were diverted to Halifax Airport in response to the unfolding situation in the US. This represented a significant portion of more than 200 flights redirected to Canada that day. The circumstances were unprecedented, and Canada was unprepared for the sudden influx of passengers, who needed to be processed, fed and accommodated until the crisis had passed. There were also major logistical and communication challenges, particularly in addressing the concerns of relatives and coordinating the many volunteers who'd stepped forward to help. The guide explained how Halifax managed the situation and how local residents came together to ensure that the stranded passengers were cared for. When he was relaying it, you could really identify what needed to be done, but it was something that I'd never considered before that. He also relayed about another event which involved the crash of a Swiss Air aircraft into St Margaret's Bay, which is about 5 miles southwest of Peggy's Cove, and that unfortunately resulted in the death of all 229 people on board. Now, many of the first volunteers to reach the crash site were crews on privately owned fishing vessels operating out of Peggy's Cove and nearby harbours. Peggy's Cove subsequently then served as one of the major staging areas for responders engaged in the search and rescue efforts, recovery operations and the investigation into the crash. He then went on to tell us about how ships from Halifax were contracted to take part in the search and rescue operations post the Titanic crash. Then, finally, as we approached the town, he spoke about the Halifax explosion of 1917, when the ship Mont Blanc, carrying a cargo of high explosives, collided at low speed with a Norwegian vessel in Halifax harbour. Although the crews attempted to warn people nearby, their efforts were misunderstood. 20 minutes later, a devastating explosion occurred, killing approximately 1,800 people and injuring 9,000 others, destroying nearly all the structures within a half-mile radius. The resulting pressure waves snapped trees, bent iron rails, demolished buildings, generated a tsunami, grounded vessels, and scattered debris for kilometres. Some of the signs of this are still present today. At the time, it was the largest man-made explosion in history. The route back to our ship took us into a tourist market which was situated in an old warehouse in front of the ship. The market had a variety of items to buy, and that sort of included jewellery, clothing, you could get sauces, books and gifts. Once again, these seemed to be all reasonably priced, although we didn't end up buying anything. Mainly as we were quite hungry by this stage and we wanted to get to the restaurant, or the buffet rather, so no pressure there. Hello, and we've just got back from our cruise excursion to Peggy's Cove, which was a really nice experience. The drive there was actually quite lovely. We're in fall now. Fall in Canada apparently has come somewhat early this year, and that's because there's been a drought, and that drought, which you could see in some of the reservoirs where the level of the water had dropped quite considerably, exposing the rocks underneath. That, drought has actually then allowed or caused the trees to actually start shedding their leaves about a month beforehand, before they normally would. And you could see a lovely set of colours, some red, orange, yellows, and every single tone in between. The cruise excursion itself, we actually got, with the benefit of hindsight, on the wrong side of the coach. We were on the right hand side, so we were inland, and whilst you could see as we sped along the various coves and bays that made up the ocean side of the excursion, it was really difficult to film. So unfortunately we won't bring you that much content in that respect, but it was a lovely experience. It's nice to go along. It's what you would expect actually of going along in Canada
and it was a worthwhile experience. We also had a very good tour guide. He was an English guy, actually from Lyndhurst, which is near where my mother is in a care home, and somewhere we went on one of our earlier cruises. We stayed off just outside the New Forest, or just inside the New Forest, I should say, and we released that probably about. Actually, we released that today, so you guys would see it. Nice little island over there with a couple of houses and a lighthouse. So, whilst we were in Peggy's Cove, we found a really nice pewter shop. Joanne went in first and ended up buying some very nice earrings for everyday use in pewter. And I went in and found a really nice decoration to remind us of this holiday for what we call our family tree. It's up the whole year round, and we sort of alternate the decorations that we have on it, usually with ones that we use to remember items about the family or holidays, etc. Changing them out for Christmas decorations near Christmas, but only for a short while before we then revert back to the family remembrances. So the plan now is to chill out in the room, have a bit of a rest, read a book, and then we will go down probably around 6:30 for drinks before our evening meal and meet up with our friends, chat, and then go for our evening meal. Got quite a nice meal lined up today with some items that all of us like, which is really good.
So I'm having, what is it called?
Pork pot.
Pork pot
Pork pot stickers that are actually gyoza.
stickers, like a gyoza thing. And I'm going to dip it in my dip.
I'll put it in your mouth.
Oh, it's actually really lovely. Lovely.
As nice as I cook.
They're not quite as nice as Steve does these, and they're not quite as nice as Steve does. He does do some really nice ones.
And that is a really nice pork pot sticker. It is nice, I enjoyed
Very
that.
nice. Not quite as nice as yours.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Well, I've got fish and chips, princess style,
Any pepper for you, sir?
mushy peas.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Not a lover of mushy peas, but they're quite nice. Chips. Very nice. Oh gosh, this is hard butter. Hang on a minute. Oh, the fish looks nice inside. Very succulent. Tartar sauce as well. Very nice on the whole.
And I'm going for the seared scallops. This looks really nice, actually. Really, really nice.
Man, I like that one.
I don't normally like to roast them. Coconut,
Just nice to itself, I like Good.
I love creme brulee. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I've gone for the apple pie with a crumble topping. Very nice, but not as hot as I expected, but very nice.